Tired of being embarrassed by your yellow teeth? Well, I'm going to show you exactly what a dentist would recommend to get the whitest teeth out there. And the best part is you don't even need to leave home to get started. From using a banana peel, that's weird, to the newest innovations in whitening that I came up with myself. We're going to go over all the different things to transform your smile. Now, the first thing that we need to get into is why your teeth get yellow over time. And there is a lot of things that actually can cause that. And fun fact, even though your teeth appear naturally whiter, they're actually a shade of yellow, and then they just get way yellower. But these things are what causes those things to become super yellow. Now, the first thing is diet. You're gonna eat a lot of different foods out there, and sometimes there are foods that can stain your teeth more than others. Some of the ones that I can think of, we've got tea, we've got coffee, we've got turmeric, we've got even Taki dust. That's right, my hot Cheeto Taki left with the big red. All of those things can stain your teeth. Next up, we've got smoking. That's right, the nicotine, tobacco, that type of smoke, when mixed with your saliva, does cause this brownish tint to happen. And in fact, you'll see brown stains all over in all of our tobacco/nicotine users. Next up, we have poor oral hygiene. That's right, if you're not cleaning these teeth on average, you're going to get a buildup of what we like to call plaque and calculus and biofilm that will harbor all this stuff. And so the crazy part is we need to know the anatomy of a tooth, right? Your tooth has all these little enamel tubules or holes inside of it. Think of it almost porous like a sponge. And all these things, the food, the smoking, and this plaque and stuff goes inside the tooth and goes up inside those holes and starts to stain the inside. And so not only can you get the buildup of that plaque and calculus on top of the teeth, but it can work its way inside those holes and start to stain your teeth from the inside out. Next up, we've got medications. There's certain antibiotics and antihistamines. You especially got one called tetracycline staining. That's a kind of interesting one. Different medications can actually stain your teeth as well. And the last is just age and wear. That's fact, as you get older, you start to wear away your teeth. You're grinding, you're using those tools. Your teeth are tools. And so if you're using them for decades and decades, you're gonna wear them down and that enamel is going to get thinner. If you don't know, your teeth is multiple layers. You have the outside layer of enamel, which actually is clear. And the yellowness that you're seeing is the inside of the tooth, or the dentin layer of that. And so if you wear down the clear part of your tooth, you will get closer and closer to the yellow part, or the dentin of the tooth, and your teeth will look more yellow over time. And the crazy part is there are so many easy ways to combat this yellowing of the tooth and making your teeth whiter. And actually there's two different types of whitening that we have. And these two types of whitening are extrinsic and intrinsic. So extrinsic is actually more of an abrasive. It means the outside of the tooth. This is stain that builds up on top of the teeth, that plaque, that gunk, and maybe some outside, more extrinsic outer staining that you've got going on. It doesn't necessarily change the color of the teeth, because most of the color of the tooth comes from the inside, but what it does is it removes the surface stain. This is really good in people that drink tea all the time, or they're smoking a lot and things are sticking to the front of the teeth, to that plaque layer, that biofilm layer of the teeth. And the other is intrinsic staining. Now this is actually whitening inside the tooth, which is what you're using your hydrogen peroxides, those whitening strips that you've got, carbamide peroxide. Those two are the main agents that I would use in whitening your teeth. And then there's also even a layer further that you can do where you can actually whiten the inside of the tooth, inside the pulp. That's called internal whitening. So if you've ever had somebody that's gotten hit in the face and their tooth has died on the inside, their tooth will turn gray, and you actually have to do a root canal, and then you have to actually fill the inside of the tooth with whitening to really whiten it from the inside out. Remember those little holes I was talking about earlier? That's actually going into those holes and whitening out all the cracks and nooks and crannies inside your tooth. Now the first thing we can do is we can prevent those stainings from foods, and this is exactly how I would do that. Now, as we've talked about, some of these foods have very high stain potential. You know, you've got wines and berries, and you've got Takis, and you've got, you know, turmeric type things. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you just have to absolutely stop doing this, although I will say you're more prone to having a bunch of stain if you're drinking coffee every single morning, or you're doing other things like that. So there's a couple things you can do to help. One is if you're drinking some of these things like teas and coffees, you can use a straw. So actually drink through a straw, and it won't hit the front teeth as much, and it won't stain as badly. But one of the most important things I would tell you to do is actually rinse your mouth out with water after you're done eating or drinking. If you do this, you know, it's going to basically get rid of all that staining particles in your mouth and not let them sit on your teeth for as long. And then about 45 to 60 minutes after you eat, you can brush your teeth. Now this is super important because we don't want you to brush your teeth directly after eating. eating, which some people get in the habit of doing. Unfortunately, that food and drink can break down into these acidic components, weakening the enamel of your teeth. And so the last thing you want to do is immediately after eating, go brush your teeth with an abrasive toothpaste, and you're actually going to brush away and damage some of that enamel. So we need to give it about 45 minutes to an hour to let your teeth repair themselves inside their mouth before they're ready for that toothbrushing. Now the next one is controversial, and I get this quite a bit, and it's oil pulling. This is another type of whitening that we can do, or another thing that is apparently out there on the internet for you to whiten. And what are my thoughts on it? Let's get into it. Now there are some studies showing that oil pulling, which is basically swishing your mouth out with coconut oil for 10 to 15 minutes, can apparently whiten your teeth. It can reduce inflammation, it can balance the oral microbiome. All of these things are shown in research studies. Unfortunately, there are also other research studies that say that it doesn't do these different things. Now, personally for me, I don't feel like this would be an intrinsic whitening agent like a hydrogen peroxide or something like that has been tested and tried and really truly works. Now, what the studies do show that we've confirmed is that the swishing motion of you just swishing in general does remove some of that plaque off the teeth. And so if anything, it's more of just a removal of the plaque, and that therefore can remove some stain. So basically, in my eyes, do I think swishing your mouth with coconut oil that's fairly expensive for 15 minutes every day is your best use of time to whiten your teeth? Probably not, but is it gonna hurt you? No, it's probably not gonna hurt you. But that being said, in that same 15 minutes, you could brush, you could floss, you could brush again, you could floss again, you could brush again, you could floss again, and still have some time left over. So I think I would much rather just brush and floss. That's a way easier way to get rid of that plaque and that pellicle and keep your mouth clean. The next up, we have whitening toothpaste. So whitening toothpaste actually have a combination of ingredients. The first things that they have, or the things that we've talked about, the intrinsic staining type things, hydrogen peroxide and carbamide peroxide, but they're in very, very small amounts. And then also you have some mild abrasive. And actually, I'm looking at all the different mild abrasives here. We have activated charcoal, baking soda, silica, dicalcium phosphate, calcium carbonate, sodium metaphosphate, zirconium silicate, calcium pyrophosphate. That's a lot of words. And what that means is basically it's an abrasive. It's almost like a very, very, very mild sandpaper. And remember how we were talking about the intrinsic versus extrinsic? This is an extrinsic stain. It is something to basically kind of wear away the tooth in a very minute amount to whiten the teeth. Now, this is where we can get into some issues, because if you have charcoal toothpaste, that was a big trend for a while, and these tooth powders, those are very highly abrasive. And so people were using those and they were seeing great results because they were like, man, I'm ripping off all this stain, until their teeth started to get yellower all of a sudden. And everybody was freaking out. Why are my teeth getting white then yellow? And it was because they were ripping away that clear enamel layer down, 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 until they started to see the inner yellow dentin layer show through. And not only this, but it caused a ton of sensitivity and other problems along with it. So I would highly recommend not really going with the crazy abrasive ones, but there are whitening toothpaste out there with some mild hydrogen peroxide and mild abrasives. Just look for that enamel safe badge on them. And once again, these are more meant for that extrinsic staining, although they can have some of the hydrogen peroxide. There's so little on your teeth for so little amount of time, it's not really going to do much. You really need about 5 to 10% hydrogen peroxide on your teeth for 30 to 60 minutes every day to get some whitening, versus this is a very less than 1% of hydrogen peroxide only on your teeth for a minute to 2 minutes a day. So you can kind of do the math there. Now, another special shout out to a type of toothpaste is actually a new thing that's on the block, and this is called nanohydroxyapatite. Now, your teeth are made of hydroxyapatite crystals, and so we found that we could actually remineralize your teeth similar to fluoride if you had nanohydroxyapatite, not micro and not just hydroxyapatite. Those are too big to get into the teeth, and also it had to be at 10% levels. So you got to watch out, because other hydrogen or other nanohydroxyapatite toothpaste that you see online, a lot of them are only 3% because they're trying to save money. Now, the way that this nanohydroxyapatite whitens, it can do way more than that, but the way that the nanohydroxyapatite works is it actually goes into the tooth structure and starts refilling these kind of little holes and irregularities in the enamel that you've worn down over the years, and actually helps rebuild that clear layer to get you further away from that yellow inside layer, making your teeth look a little bit whiter. Now we actually have our own toothpaste, Zero, actually, which is one of the very first 10% nanohydroxyapatite toothpaste in the world, and it's absolutely insane. You should definitely try it out. It's from my brand, Something Nice. And with how many scam hydroxyapatite toothpaste they are out there in the market, if you really want one that you're tried and trusted, science-backed, no BS that I created myself, get ours. I guarantee you're gonna love it. And not only that, but we're the only toothpaste in the world formulated with what we call pure taste, which means that this is the only toothpaste you're ever gonna have where you brush your teeth and then you can go immediately drink a glass of orange juice and taste zero difference. Now, some other really cool things about Zero: it has no fluoride, it has no SLS, it has no titanium dioxide, and actually the full entire package, from the tube, the cap, and the box, is fully recyclable. One of only 2 toothpastes in the world to be able to say that their whole entire toothpaste package is fully recyclable. Now, even though we talked about all these different whitening toothpaste, there are a few things that I want you to watch out for. Obviously, we talked about the abrasives, how they can wear down the enamel, they can cause sensitivity, and even cause some cavities because you're weakening the areas allowing that stuff to get in there. And those peroxide toothpaste, the ones with hydrogen peroxide in, sometimes that can get in there and it can cause oversensitivity of your teeth as well. So just be wary about those things. If you are going to use a whitening toothpaste, I would probably only use one for about 2 to 3 weeks. Now, that is not the same for a nanohydroxyapatite toothpaste because it's actually whitening your teeth in a different way by building up your teeth versus then ripping them down. And I wouldn't say that this is necessarily something that's going to give you the same levels of whitening as like a whitening strip or something. It just happens to be a benefit of nanohydroxyapatite that's not harmful to your teeth. So it's time for a fact or cap session on hydrogen peroxide toothpaste. Now, speaking of whitening toothpaste, there is another one out there that I've seen all over TikTok, the interwebs, YouTube, everything else, and that is a DIY toothpaste. So let's go ahead and get into exactly what that means and if it really truly works. And that TikTok toothpaste that I'm talking about, the key ingredient of it is sodium bicarbonate, also known as baking soda. And the weird part is I actually learned about this for a while, and in dental school they told us that this was an abrasive and to not use it on your teeth. But recently they've done studies showing the RDA, or the relative dentin abrasion, which means how abrasive it is to your teeth. And the studies show that baking soda actually can whiten your teeth pretty good by stain removal without really damaging your enamel. So baking soda definitely is something that you could use as a mild abrasive. Now, once again, this is an extrinsic stain thing. It's not going to be going in the teeth and cleaning it out like the whitening stuff does, like the hydrogen peroxide and all that. And while you can actually look for toothpaste like an Arm & Hammer toothpaste or something with baking soda in it, you actually can make your own. You can actually just mix 2 teaspoons of water, put some baking soda in there, mix it up, dip your toothbrush in there, and brush with it. Another one I've seen is using, the coconut oil and mixing baking soda into it. There's tons of different remedies online. Now, the ones I would recommend not doing is the homemade toothpaste with like the lemon juice and acidic things in it, because, well, that doesn't make any sense. It's going to harm your teeth. And I think the purpose of what they're trying to do is they're trying to weaken your enamel so you can brush it off. I don't think that's a good idea, so probably avoid those homemade ones with the lemons and stuff in it. And some of the pros of the baking soda is, it's pretty cheap. You can find it pretty much anywhere. It's not really gonna hurt your teeth too much. There is studies that show it can extrinsically remove stain. It's pretty easy to make in a DIY formulation, and it's non-toxic too. Now, the cons is it doesn't really have any remineralization agents. You really need fluoride or nanohydroxyapatite like our Zero toothpaste to really get that full cleaning health. And just overall, it's not a full replacement for your daily toothbrush for that reason. Alrighty, next up is whitening trays. Now, this is an oldie but a goodie. It's one that you see all the time, and a lot of professionals use these little whitening trays to custom fit to your teeth, so you're getting whitening all the time. And actually, there's different portable ones that you can get online too that are disposable trays as well. The way we actually do this is they custom fit impressions to your teeth. Then we use this thing called blockout resin to make these tiny little pods in the front of your teeth. And then you have to use this little gel thing, and you pop it in there, and then you wear it for 30, whatever. Now, you can get a bunch of different percentages of hydrogen peroxide or carbamide peroxide here: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35% even in some cases. But the problem is the higher you go up, the faster you whiten, but the more sensitivity you get. And boy, do you get a lot of sensitivity with these. And the other good thing is that once you make your tray, you can keep that tray for life. And then all you have to do is buy the refilled gel syringes. Now, you do need to take care of this whitening tray just like a retainer and things like that. You make sure to clean it out and you protect it. And if you lose it, it can be kind of costly. Now, with whitening, and especially these intrinsic whitening, it takes takes time. You know, you're not going to see results just right away with these things. It takes multiple weeks of use daily, from 30 minutes all the way up to 2 hours sometimes, to really see those stubborn stains lift, especially if they're stubborn. Me personally, I have terrible sensitivity issues, and so I would stay 10% hydrogen peroxide or less. There are some gels up there that are higher percentage, but boy, when I tell you the pain you will get from the sensitivity you're going to get from that amount of whitening, I just don't think it's worth it. And the other thing, that tray, that custom fitted tray, can sometimes cost up to $700 from your general dentist to actually make that and custom fit it to your teeth, which is just, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. But that being said, the refill for the whitening later on is probably only like 20 to 40 bucks. So let's go ahead and goes over the pros and cons of our whitening trays. So the pros is, even though it does cost money, it costs less than getting like a $500 Zoom whitening treatment over time, because you can reuse it and the refills are cheaper over time. The other thing is you can actually save some costs and even use some things like your Invisalign trays if you had Invisalign or your retainers or things like that. The only issue I would say there is that we custom fit these little pods, remember, with the block out resin on whitening trays, where the other ones, if they're so flat up against your teeth, that gel can kind of spread and not do quite as good a job. And one benefit also is that some of these trays, if really done correctly, they scallop so they don't get on your gums, and that gel really stays on your teeth instead of sometimes getting on your gums like some strips or other gel type things can get you to. But that's more the custom fitted ones from the dentist, not the cheap ones you can find on Amazon. Now the cons is they're very expensive to make that upfront cost from your dental office, and two, you got to go in to a dental office with multiple appointments to actually get your molded and go through all that, which is a total trauma thing if you've never had a impression. Oh my gosh. And then you got to go back again and get it all fitted and all that type of stuff, and you got to keep buying from that dentist again, which is, that can be kind of weird too. And the other thing too is, even though they give you higher percentages there, up to 35%, I just think the sensitivity on that is just too crazy. All right, next up, the next thing that claims that it whitens your teeth: electric toothbrush companies. We've all seen the Oral-B geniuses and all these crazy crazy things, and they say that their power toothbrush is just going to whiten your teeth away, and that's a special, even you'll see on the modes, there's like 5 modes. They'll be like, ooh, this is the whitening mode, and these can even range from like 5 to 500. You can have sonic, you can have oscillating, and there's studies showing which ones are better. You know, personally for me, from a toothbrushing standpoint, it doesn't matter what toothbrush you use as long as you like it and you want to use it. If you properly know how to brush, any brush works. But that being said, if you don't know how to brush properly or you've got coordination issues, then yeah, power brush is probably going to work pretty good. What I will say, as far as whitening your teeth go, yeah, it goes back to that extrinsic stain stuff. You do really need to brush your teeth to get off that stain. That's 100% true. It just doesn't quite matter what toothbrush you have. So is an electric toothbrush going to whiten your teeth better than a manual toothbrush? No, as long as you know how to properly brush, which if you don't, go look it up. It's called the Bass technique of brushing. And as long as you do that, you're going to get the most that you're probably going to get from any toothbrush. And also, for my people who think that it whitens their teeth, I've had some people try that where they're like, I have really yellow teeth, so I brush really hard on my teeth. Don't do that. You can damage the enamel and cause these things called wear facets, where you're actually damaging these abrasion lesions on the fronts of your teeth. It's not good. So you want to protect your enamel. Use a soft bristle toothbrush, and don't go scraping them really crazy trying to whiten your teeth, because that's not how it works. You're just getting the plaque and gunk off, okay? That's the job. Another way to whiten your teeth is veneers. Yes, actually veneers. You can actually just change your entire whiteness of your teeth instantly with veneer. Now, this would probably be the most extreme way, I would say, to whiten your teeth. And make sure you're getting it from a real dentist, okay? Not one of those TikTok veneer technicians. You guys know about that one. That ended up badly. Now, is it true that it whitens your teeth to whatever level you have? Yes. And is it true that they really don't stain that much? So they stay that color forever? Really, even if you're eating, smoking, drinking, things like that, for the most part, the color stays. That's actually the same thing with if you're whitening your natural teeth. If you have fillings or if you have crowns, this is actually an issue, because as you're whitening or your natural teeth are yellowing, those crowns or veneers or fillings stay the same color. So yes, it works really well, but unfortunately it comes at a cost. You have to damage your teeth. You have to drive it down. You have to polish it all away, and you will never get that tooth structure back. Another con of that is that you have to replace the veneer. You have to, every 10 years, it could break, it could fall off, you could have to get new ones. You might not like the shade of your teeth anymore, and you might have to, if you want to replace one, then you got to replace all of them to get whatever shade you like. So even though they're not really a whitening method, they do whiten your teeth, and I would definitely say try some of these other things on the list before you go to whiten. And I definitely would not get veneers just for the shade of whitening. My rule has always stood on veneers the same. If you like the shape of your teeth, then whiten them, okay? If you absolutely don't like the shape of your teeth, you have something like a peg lateral, or you just got funky, weird shape, ground down teeth, then yes, veneer may very well be a great option, not because it's whitening your teeth, but because it's doing all the other things to fix and help. All right, another one is banana peels. Now this is crazy because I've seen this all over TikTok. You know, your holistic doctors, everything, getting their little banana peels out and doing stuff. And what you do is you literally take your banana, you peel it out, the inside layer, you sit there and you rub it on your teeth with this banana peel, and then you leave it on there and it magically supposedly whitens your teeth. Now they say it's because the potassium and all these things absorb into your teeth. I don't buy it. Personally, I just think, you know, the internet likes to do weird things sometimes, and sometimes just things shouldn't be done. And to be honest, who even thought like, hey, I want to rub banana peels on my teeth? I think that's a great way to whiten. So I'll just say this, in all my years in dentistry, I've never seen anybody whiten their teeth with a banana peel successfully. So we'll just leave it at that. All right, the next up is whitening mouthwashes. We talked about whitening toothpaste, but what about whitening mouthwashes? Do those work? Well, although they do have that intrinsic staining stuff, the hydrogen peroxide or carbamide peroxide at small percentage levels inside, technically it can whiten your teeth slowly over time. Now, that being said, if you have cracks in your teeth or things like that, it can cause some mild sensitivity. In fact, if I've used a couple whitening toothpaste, and me personally, I get sensitive from them, so I don't like them, but that also tells you that it's probably very slowly working. Once again, you can use these. Not going to harm you. Just make sure you use an alcohol-free one because we don't want to dry out the mouth and cause problems there. But overall, if you want to do it, you might get, 1 to 2 shades every 3-4 months, which isn't a ton, but it's something. Alrighty, before we move on to the rest of the whitening things that you can do to your teeth, I want to go over some just really quick things. Now that we've talked about a bunch, some things that you probably want to avoid during this. Now, the first off is those little LED lights. Those little blue LED lights, they click in their mouth and they're like, oh my gosh, this is going to whiten your teeth 25,000% faster. It's a scam. Now, the reason behind this is because when we use these things in a dental office called Zoom whitening, we have very high percentages of hydrogen peroxide, and we have these very strong blue lights that we put in your mouth, and we heat everything up. And actually, the light can help activate that hydrogen peroxide to get it to work a little bit better. But those ones that you see that are those cheapo depot battery powered blue lights that you get from a kit that costs you $150, those are a scam. Avoid those. The next one is those kiosks that in the mall that do teeth whitening. I would really kind of avoid those if possible. A lot of them are not ran by trained dental professionals, and when you're getting up into that higher levels of hydrogen peroxide, you can really burn tissue, damage your gums, and cause a ton of sensitivity. So really be worried about those. The whitening mouthwashes and the whitening toothpaste, you definitely want to make sure on the whitening toothpaste side you're not getting anything super abrasive. And in the whitening mouthwash and whitening toothpaste, just know if you start to get a little bit of sensitivity, that's probably what it's from. We talked about those DIY tooth methods, and we talked a little bit about it already, but make sure once again you avoid the acidic fruits. Don't get the lemons and all those things in there. Like I said, they're purposely weakening your enamel so that they can damage it to get some surface stains off. Avoid that at all costs. And also along that same line, even things like sea salt or very highly abrasive like charcoal powder and things like that, really try and avoid any major abrasives. If you need an abrasive, go with the baking soda. That's the one you want. Now getting into one of my favorite on the list. It's got the most research studies on it. The most people have had success with it. You can do it at home. It's super easy. That is whitening strips. Now, whitening strips have been around for a long time. When they started, they were these things. They were just putting like a strip of hydrogen peroxide gel, and they would just stick it and wrap it around. Ooh, they were goopy, nasty. They tasted terrible. And boy, have we came a long way since then. We've had different stuff from Crest White strips and all that, and we've gotten the percentages correctly. And nowadays, if you go to the store, you're going to get something like a 5 to 8% max hydrogen peroxide strip that wraps around the teeth and does a pretty good job. That is until we at Something Nice came up with our new whitening strip. Now this is called the LumiSmart, and our LumiSmart strips are absolutely game-changing because they give you 2 times the strength of the same whitening strips that you've always seen with 60% less sensitivity. That's right, we've talked about whitening and how much it gives you sensitive teeth, and that happens for all hydrogen peroxide or carbamide peroxide for that intrinsic staining. It's just part of it. And the reason you get that sensitivity is because you have these little holes we talked about, right? And normally they're plugged up with organic matter, and when hydrogen peroxide goes in there, it actually dissolves it away to go inside the tooth and whiten from the inside out. The side effect is those holes are open for a little bit. And so air and everything else can go into the nerve and cause sensitivity. Now, there is no way around that until now, because with LumiSmart, we actually are the first people, and we've patented this way that we call Smart Adjust technology. Now, what that means is we allowed it to basically adjust the strip and peelable layers here, and this is what it looks like, to actually only put the thing on your front teeth, meaning the edges in the back of your teeth don't get touched by the hydrogen peroxide, meaning they don't get sensitive, meaning 60% of your tooth is not sensitive. Now, the other thing is there's nothing on your back teeth, so you're not licking and feeling all this nasty goop and tasting everything. And also, we have great flavors. We have watermelon, coconut, mint, peach.
But Bentist, how did you do that if it's slipping, sliding, and gooping?
Well, we also came up with a thing called Hydro Grip, and Hydro Grip allows it to mechanically stick onto those tubules that we were talking about and stick really good to only the front teeth. So it doesn't slip, doesn't slide, there's no residue, it tastes amazing, and it does twice the strength of whitening because we use 10% hydrogen peroxide versus 5%, and that 60% less sensitivity is a game changer. Now, in general, I like whitening strips because, well, they work. And two, they're very easily readable. You don't need to go to a dental office to get it. They're also pretty cheap. They're not $500 for a Zoom whitening at your dental office. Normally they go anywhere from $50 to $20, determining if you get 7 treatments or 14 treatments or 21. Our LumiSmart, we gave you the max. We wanted to give you 21, so you're getting tons of treatments in these things, but still, the cost of this is 10 times less than a dental whitening. Now, I would tell you that most whitening strips also give you that high sensitivity issue, so that is a still big issue with sensitivity until now that we've came out with LumiSmart, we've really kind of gotten away with that. So whitening is really some of the best time ever right now. We actually have patents on this because it works so well. Alrighty, and lastly, we're gonna go over one of the biggest, baddest ones that we've got here, and that is your professional teeth whitening systems. That is the Zoom whitening. That is the big mamma jamma, the $500 to $700 at your dental office treatment, where basically what they have to do, it's so strong and so caustic to your teeth that basically they go in with protective gel and they cover all your gum tissue, because if you get any of this stuff on it, it will literally burn it and turn it white. It's crazy. They use very high levels of hydrogen peroxide. They put it all over your teeth and they let it sit there for about an hour. And then that light, basically, we were talking about, it activates that hydrogen peroxide, causing it to work really well. Now, are you gonna jump up quite a few shades in that 1 to 2 hour session? Yes, you are, but you're going to be very sensitive. Now, with our LumiSmart, say, which we were talking about, the whitening strips, you can get that same amount of shade difference, but it will take you 14 to 21 treatments or days to do that from 30 to 60 minutes each time. So yes, it will take you a lot longer to do it with the whitening strips, but it also costs you 10 times less without all the pain and sensitivity and the traveling to the dentist and sitting there for 2 hours and all that type of stuff. Because for me, I just slap these whitening strips on while I work, and people don't even know that I have them on, and then an hour later, I just take them off. Now, hydrogen peroxide and carbamide peroxide are the 2 industry standards here. This is what they normally use. Hydrogen peroxide is what we use in our whitening strips, and so yeah, it works. Now, one thing I would say, if you're really gonna be doing this, you need to make sure to find a dentist that you trust, because if they're just having some random assistant or something crazy like that doing it, you can really damage your gum tissue and other things, and you can get highly sensitive from this. All right, now that we went over all of these ways to whiten your teeth, I want to just give you a couple quick little tips here before we head out. So remember, as you age, you are going to get slightly more yellow. That's just natural. It happens, okay? It's an aging process, okay? So don't feel too bad about it. And as long as you're brushing and you're flossing and you're doing all these different types of things, and you're trying to avoid the foods and stuff that we talked about earlier, you're really going to avoid getting yellow crazy over time, but you will yellow over time. But not only is there a pro of cleaning your teeth and doing this oral hygiene all the time, you're protecting your teeth long term. You're making sure you don't get cavities, fillings, root canals, crowns, teeth being extracted because you blew them up. How can you whiten your teeth if you don't have any teeth? So it's really important to make sure that you're still properly brushing for 2 minutes a day, twice a day, and also flossing. Now, obviously, you know we got you covered with that with something nice too. We have the best water flossers in the world. We got floss picks. We even have our traditional nano floss as well, which puts that same nano hydroxyapatite into your traditional floss if you're a traditional floss girly. Now, on top of that, get your checkups every 6 months for 2 reasons. One, they go in with those piezoelectric scalers, which are like mini jackhammers, and get off all that calculus and gunk off your teeth. And also, it does a really good job of removing that extrinsic stain on your teeth to really make sure that you're starting from a great level, because the longer you keep that stuff on your teeth, the longer it goes in, the longer it stains, the yellower your teeth get over time. If you're getting your 6-month checkup every time and you're getting your cleaning every 6 months, you're really going to reduce the amount of yellowing that happens to your teeth over time. And lastly, quit your tobacco products, okay? Quit smoking. Quit using tobacco. Remember that nicotine mixes with your stuff in the middle, and I'll tell you, some of the worst staining I've seen has come from tobacco teeth. This tobacco staining right here, it is obvious from a mile away, and even though it's extrinsic, it can be intrinsic too. It gets everywhere, and it is probably my top thing that will yellow and stain and nastify your teeth the fastest possible. So overall, there are tons of ways to whiten your teeth, and hopefully I've cleared up different ways for you that I think are good and are not. Obviously, the best way is to keep your teeth clean all the time, brushing, flossing, doing all that type of stuff. And if you really need a boost, I would recommend LumiSmart by Something Nice, or any other hydrogen peroxide whitening strip that you can handle without getting too sensitive. It may take you a little bit longer, but it's going to save you a ton of money, and you're going to get great results from it. Also, be proactive when you're looking at staining things. Avoid staining foods, and avoid things like smoking and brushing to make sure that you're yellowing less fast than you normally would. But now you're armed with the knowledge. So smile more, stay happy, and stay healthy. I love you guys. We'll see you in the next one. Hope that helps.